Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Today I have the opportunity to work on a continuation of a line of Shimano products that are, well, they're classics. This is the Bantam. It's the Bantam Curado. It's the 201, which means it's a left-handed cranking reel. It's been sent in by Fred. He's asked me to tune it up. He said he's had some issues here with line gathering. And from what I'm doing here, it just feels like the reel is a little tight. And that might be the issue that he's having, is that well, dirt and debris may be clogging its ability to crank. So we'll see. We're going to take this reel completely apart. We'll show you how it's made, how to service it, and how to keep it fishing for a long time to come. Well, if you like these kinds of videos while I'm removing the handle and some exterior parts, I want to encourage you to subscribe to my channel. If you do subscribe to my channel, use that notification button. You'll see when I'm posting the videos, and well, you'll be able to make a determination as to whether that's one that you would like to watch. Well, this hand is a left-handed crank reel, so when you're going to remove that post nut there from the holding the handle on, make sure that you check both ways. This one happens to be reverse threaded, so it's going to come off in what would normally be a way to remove it. So just check that out. Take pictures as you're doing this. You never know what you're going to find in these reels. And well, since it's a relatively older reel, just don't trust your instincts on this. You may get lost along the way. Pictures will help you get back on track. Alright, this has got a spring-loaded star adjuster. Here's your spring. What that's going to do is it's going to keep your star adjuster out of the way of the drivetrain when it's not being used. Alright, I just want to make sure that we're backed off on this. And this is, everything's kind of mirror image or opposite of a right-handed drive. So you're going to work your nut off in a clockwise manner. And that's the easiest way to get that nut off the shaft. Remove the spring, and then put your handle back on, or your star adjuster back on. You can see the square inset there for the handle nut, and that will enable you to take that off pretty efficiently. All right, I'm going to move over to a micro driver here. The side plate screws are smaller, so a micro driver will help. And also, because I'm not that familiar with the reels, I've done these quite a bit, but I haven't done one lately. What I'm going to do is remove the side plate, remove the spool, and just make sure that we don't have a screw on the inside here. A lot of manufacturers do use that little channel there to hold the screw, and you'll find yourself opening up the 4 or 5 side plate screws here and not being able to remove it. Well, that's why there's one hiding in the back. While I'm doing this, we notice it's sluggish, so we're going to make sure that we oil the 2 bearings that are in the side plates. It said it's a 5 bearing reel. I guess we'll discover where the other ones are, and we're going to do that right now by removing the gear side plate. There's several screws here, so let's just take our time, remove those. I like to see if we can't get them out rather than let them hide in the case there, because you bump the case and then they're gone. Well, I think we're just going to have to be careful for a moment. These things have probably been in there for a while, so let's just work them till you feel them detach. Move on to the next one. Looks like there's 4 side plate screws here. Pictures help, but also schematics can help. If you're lost, you still can find these schematics out on the internet. A great source for those schematics is a site called realschematic.com. And just put in your model and your search into the internet browser, and it should bring you up there. All right, I think we've got all of these detached. Got one that I was able to get out. The others are kind of still sitting in the side plate there. So let's see if we can't bring this out and off now. Okay, we are off, and a couple of pieces and parts have come out, so let's just pay attention to those. The first two that came out are in my hand. Those two are tension washers for your star adjuster. Then one of the yoke springs has come off of the post here, so I like to remove those right away. They tend to get in the way of things. Then one of those screws just fell out, and here's a thing to note. That screw in the side plate, well, there's two of them that have fallen out, which is why I like to see if I can't get those out ahead of time. So we have 3 small screws. They go in the back here, 1, 2, and 3, and then the screw that goes into the bezel over your worm gear and line guide assembly, that's a longer screw. So you do need to make sure that you note that as you go through the process. Here's your 3rd ball bearing here. We're going to oil that. And I'm using Penn Precision reel oil to accomplish the oiling of the reel. And something that you should know, I think I just found out why it's not gathering. I just looked at this as we took this off, and that's not set in the key, and I can see that there's a lot of wear on this main outer washer here. This thing should be seated inside the key. I don't know how it may have popped out, but that needs to be flush. So my guess is he wasn't getting good drag pressure because it was sitting like that, and that was probably rolling around the outside. I'll just see how we do. We'll take this reel completely apart. We don't want to just guess on one piece and ignore the rest of it. We want to service the entire reel while we are at it. And once we do that, we can put it all back together again and see if that corrects the situation. The reel is relatively dry, very dry. And well, it's going to be check the pieces and parts. That starts with removing your main gear. There's a click ratchet underneath that's going to fire the the free spool release button, which is right there. We have a yoke and a pinion gear. I'm just going to set these aside out of the way for a moment because I want to check the rest of this assembly. Okay, here's your free spool assembly. That should rotate this head as we bring it down, should kick this clutch in like that. And then that click ratchet we were kind of talking about there, that's going to push back and kick it up like that when it's time to release. Everything in here is clean, and what we'll do is we're just going to put a drop of oil underneath that Teflon gear. There's a bearing that's hiding in there usually. You can also access it from this side. You don't need to pull that whole assembly off to do that. And you don't need to grease the Teflon gears. Also going to take the time. If this was dirty, you would take the time to clean it. Right now, it's operating just fine. Thank you very much. All you need to do is make sure it's oiled. Okay. If you did, for some reason, need to remove your gear stem and service the bearing, you'll come underneath here. It's not an easy task, but you can see that there are 2 screws holding on a cover plate over the back end of the stem. That stem has got an E-clip on it, and that E-clip you would remove, and that would give you the way to pull this out. Don't need to do that. All right, we've taken the one side out of this. We might as well take the other side out. There's one more case screw here. We noted that the case screw on the other side is the long screw of the 4 screws that we're holding the side plate in. Take that case screw out, and we can pull the bezel off now. When you do this, notice you've got a ridge here, and there's a ridge on your line guide. A little indentation with the 2 clips, so it looks like the letter U, and it's going to ride on this track here. So I took that off because I wanted to make sure that we're clean underneath. Grab that assembly for a moment. Put a little bit of penetrating oil in there is kind of a mop-up detail. Use a cotton swab. Just clean it up. This is your opportunity to make sure that the reel is clean during your annual service. So take the time to do that. This is clean. And while we have this open then, I'm just going to rotate this so I can get this to an easy spot over on the side. And we're going to take the line guide cap off. And we're going to pull out the washer and the pawl that are inside. This is your washer. It's a very small copper washer that's going to go inside the cup. I'll leave that on my desk. And then we have the pawl. And you want to pull the pawl out to make sure that it is clean. This one's very clean. If you had dirt and debris, you would clean them off that shoulder in addition to the cylinder. You also want to check the two sides, the points on the pawl, to make sure that they're in good condition. What I like to do is start it in the case, and then a drop of oil will help that to operate better or smooth. Ensure it's working right. Next thing you want to do is push down on the pawl, make sure that it's gathered, and then we can take that little washer again, bring the washer on top of the pawl, make sure that it seats like that, and then we can bring the cap over. Now these caps, I kind of call them castle caps. They look like the rooks in chess. They have these little points on them. Do not over tighten this cup. If you do, you're going to break those little points. And these caps are getting increasingly hard to find due to the age of that manufacturer. So just the slightest little bit of snugging up once you do that. I'm going to just take a moment here with the paper towel just to kind of wipe down that piece, wipe down the line guide that it's riding on. Get back to the other side. There's a little bit of grease on the other side here. A little bit of oil onto your worm gear. It's clean. And now we can reset the bezel, remembering that this little section here is where you need to merge in with that. It goes in square, so you can't rock this. If you rock it, you're going to damage that bezel. So bring it in. Make sure that you have one side up and one side low in the line guide. And just bring it in so that it fits nice and snug like that. You can put a little drop of oil on both sides now. And just give it a turn, make sure it's turning fine, and this one's doing what it should be doing. Alright, back over to the other side now. We're going to go back to the ratchet. Now let's get a couple of these pieces off of here. Okay, get your ratchet from the parts tray. That's your click ratchet that's going to throw the anti-reverse. We'll show you how it works. Let's put that in here. Your anti-reverse now is going, your free spool release is going to kick down like that. You can see how that merges in with one of the slots. This is a left-handed reel, so it's going to turn this way, and you'll see how it kicks it back up. That's what's going to release the override of the free spool so that it goes back into gear. And again, Fred said that there's an issue here with the spool not engaging. I don't think it's that. That seems to be working fine. Check the teeth on this. I was doing a quick scan of it. Check the teeth. If they're bent, broken, or malformed, then you're going to need to replace the pinion gear. Pinion gear has two sides on it. One of them is a slotted side that's going to face the spool. Your yoke has a slanted or ramped side to it that faces the spool as well. And we can bring that in once you grease the carrier and the pinion gear. Center that, bring it in. Make sure it goes all the way down. And now you have room for those springs. That spring I'll put in a little bit. I always risk losing those springs. The washer goes on next. Let's open up this. We probably have a felt drag washer in here, I'm thinking. Yep, we have a felt drag washer in here. We have standard issue Shimano drag washer. I guess it's leather. It's not felt. It's some kind of composite. These can be greased. I'm just going to use regular fishing reel grease on this. If you have dry grease, like Cal's Universal Dry Grease, yeah, you can use that. You don't need to run out and buy it. Fishing reel grease will be fine. So we've greased the washer. There's a little bit of, I think it's just plain discoloration under here. So just make sure that that's nice and clean and it's not going to obstruct the performance of a drag. We'll do this as an illustration. The teeth on this are pretty clean inside, but if you are servicing your main gear, take a bristle brush and pull through the gear teeth as you're inspecting them. That'll make sure that the debris is out of there and that you get a good look at all of the teeth to make sure, like we did on the pinion gear, that they're all uniform and clean. Good amount of grease goes back onto this reel. I'm using Penn Precision Reel Grease for this. I really don't have a preference for fishing reel greases. I just encourage you to make sure that you're using a fishing reel grease as you're servicing your reel. Okay, good deal. Bring that on. Set that so that it meshes with your pinion gear. Bring the drag washer in. There's two sides to the cap washer. This is the one that's going to put the tension on there. This one's a little bit more rounded on the edge. Leave that to the outside. Bring that on. Now, I don't know if this was the cause or not. I just noticed that it was not set in. But that could have been that I pulled that out when I removed the case. Not sure. But as long as you correct it at that point, you shouldn't have any issues. Two screws, or springs rather, go on next before the screws. I got ahead of myself. The springs go on. Here's the case. We've oiled the bearing on the inside of the case. You have an anti-reverse clutch. This one is a left-handed side, and you have two metal sides to this clutch. So if you've removed that, you're going to have to make a note as to which is the inner side of this. A lot of times you're going to find the anti-reverse clutch will have a metal on one side and a plastic on the other. And that might be the case on this. That may just be a ring on the inside of the case. I'm not sure. But regardless, if you do pull that anti-reverse clutch out of there, just make sure you know what side goes inside, particularly on an opposing or a left-handed side wheel. All right, while you have that off, it's always a good opportunity to clean that. I'm going to use rod and reel cleaner here. Just a little shot on a kitchen scrubby pad. And then I'll take off whatever dirt and debris is on the reel itself. And just clean that up and we can reinstall that. Center it up over your case, bring it in. Make sure you hear a nice snap like that, and make sure that your seam of your case is nice and tight throughout. We did mention that one of these screws is longer than the other, and it belongs here, so let's get that one out of the way right away so that we don't make a mistake of putting that into a hole that's designed for one of the shorter screws. Again, we'll use that micro screwdriver, bring that in. We have 3 more screws to do. I'm going to go opposite here, kind of east-west, north-south. I want to keep balance of tension on that side plate as I install those screws. Sometimes when you go in a clockwise manner, it causes it to bind at one particular area. So just alternate the screw positions. Just a good way to do that. One more to go. little screws. Those of you that watch the channel know, well, we have fun from time to time. We don't play well together. We've overcome that with a couple of tips and techniques for managing those smaller screws. After we finish the side plate screws, but before we put the spool and the side plate on, remember we have one more screw here that's for the bezel, and that's the silver screw that we took off earlier on. Let's go ahead and put that back on. We can tighten that up. Let's put a little bit of grease onto the spool shafts. I'm using an artist's brush to spread the grease. I like it because it doesn't lose the hairs of some other brushes that may be used. Some folks like the flux brushes that plumbers use and the like. I prefer to stay with that artist's brush. Alright, once we installed the spool, side plate cover goes on. This is a screw in. Screw it in a clockwise manner, then close your gate for the lock. And we can come back over here and install the other side parts then. There's two of these tension washers. They have a belly in them. The first one I install goes belly up, and the second one belly down. That'll give you the most sensitivity to the star adjuster. Next one up is the flat washer. Then we have our adjuster nut. Remember, we're going opposite now because this is a left-handed reel, so it's a reverse thread. It goes on counterclockwise. And we have our spring. Now, sometimes when you're working on reels like these, you'll find that there is a cup cut into that nut. In this case, there's not. There is a square on this side, so you do need to bring this in. Press down on the spring and rotate it so that you lock into the square before you put your handle on. The handle is next, and then the handle nut goes on. Again, you're going in an opposite direction here. Make sure that you seat that properly. You don't want to cross strip the threads of either the nut or the post. Right now I'm not on square, so I'm just kind of working it till I feel it in the grooves. And it's always the best to do as much of this by hand as you can. That way you can guarantee that you're not going to strip out that nut or the shaft. Once you do that, give it a firming and then tighten down on your star adjuster. Star adjusters tighten by going forward. That should relieve the tension. We can tighten this down. Look for that point to point at the hole in the handle. That should mean that the cap can go on right where it belongs. And we can tighten this up. We can give it a test. Well, the first concern Fred had was that the spool was not gathering line. I didn't see a lot of evidence of dirt. I did see that the shaft's spacer may not have been seated correctly, but that could have been when I pulled this off too. But let's see if we've got the drag. Right now we've got the drag set. Oh, that's not slipping. That's a very firm, tight drag holding the way it should. So that should solve the issue with the line not gathering. Let's bring this in, make sure everything else works nicely. It's working the way it should. I think we're over tightened here on the spool adjuster. We certainly are. Wow. Well, yeah, that'll make that one go a little bit easier, won't it? Okay. That works good. Make sure that we showed you how that trip mechanism works. Let's just make sure that it's doing what it should. Free spooling on the way out. And again, you have a spool adjuster here to control the speed of that spool and prevent backlash. And of course, when you turn it now, that should trip back up, which is what it does. There you go. All right, I'm satisfied that we have that done correctly. The drag is holding. That should collect the line on the spool. This one turns nice and free and easy. And as always, I recommend that you back off the star adjuster when you're not using the reel. Okay, and that's because you saw we freshly greased the drag washer inside the main gear. Leaving that on clamps that drag washer down. With it clamped down, it's forcing the oils and greases out of it, and well, it dries and can lead to premature wear. All right, I hope that this has been informative. I hope if you have one of these, you now know how to service it. If you see one of these available as a used reel, it's a nice reel, and you might want to go out and consider purchasing that. It's an older style reel. I'm going to think from the 1990s, perhaps the early 2000s. I didn't do my work here, but this is the Bantam Curado, and it is the CU201 left-handed cranking low-profile bait casting reel. I hope you've enjoyed that. Before I leave, I want to take a moment to thank our first responders, our police, fire, safety, rescue, everybody involved in the public safety and in keeping us out of harm's way. I want to thank you for watching. I want to encourage you again to subscribe if you have not subscribed, and to use that notification button to let you know when I'm posting. This is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle, wishing everybody a great day.